This is part 4 of this little red book on eye awareness as a meditation. And it's really about the body as the mind's experience of itself in eye awareness. So you live what you speak and speak what you live next, and every single word you use is of a physiology. And every single word that's spoken, of course, is accompanied by a range of body movements and things which all act as accessing cues, which can be observed as a window into the neurology, neurobehavior physiological state internally, which those external movements are all relaying information about what's going on more internally. So all memory, learning and behaviour is state specific, of course, and words, just as non-verbal also behaviour, all give you and I a window more into the internal matrix of a body and mind and one's experience. So whole body calibration is you having a capacity to learn how to observe whole body movement and body part movements and look at these and see how they act as accessing cues into the neurology that's being used underneath to access information that's wherever it's beyond your present sensory awareness. You go through a series of accessing cues to access this information. So all of that is internally driven that you're observing. And tracking is observing patterns of whole body movements to get a literal metaphor of the deepest of other than conscious processing within someone. So everything really is such that as you've got more associated, integrated and congruent neurology, your own self, your life is more like a poem, which is letting life be more as a painting is, and your life is your art and your art is your life. And analog sculpting is, simple, just that as you have a happy face within yourself and in a smile, you've got this eye awareness, immediate more, and a state specificness of a neurology that's being sculpted by your sensory-motor complex and the way you can shape things to have a desired outcome. So life music, of course, and life food, they're all examples of non-verbal language and behaviour themselves, and analogue itself in how something is said and put. Also a book left on a table. Anybody could pass by it, of course, and observe the cover and the title, and this is sort of really you using analogue sculpting to cause someone to have a subliminal communication about something, or conscious. But all non-verbal can be made use of, including your body position and posture itself, and this is all analog sculpting. So as the shoulders really are more back, and there's a bit of an arch in the small of your back, and your back is more straight, so is your torso, a feeling of yourself being more lifted and open, where your heart area is ever more from a feeling of pride. And you could talk about that, but unless you've got this posture, you're only going to be able to feel this as you have this posture. So analog sculpting is very powerful. So as the posture is adopted, you've got this more inner happy face, and you can access this state of pride and dignity, and it really doesn't rent any space for fear, and because fear would have ended life as where life is, you see. So healing is really where you've got a greater emotional intelligence, and you've developed language to be able to describe feeling states, and in an eye-aware state, you become more super conscious ever more with more knowledge that you gain, which starts to satisfy all the repressed desire that you could have had. So once that's all gone, of course, you really are more like a lotus in water, yet where the water isn't touching you. So it's a blissful inner feeling all by itself, which is a judged and rememberedness of life wholly, which would have been missed if anything would have been miserable or anything such would have been kept of your will. Yet to have a personal, private, subjective teacher that you can be more connecting your whole self with, you could be looking at the footsteps of this person and be observing to see where they've gone to come to have this investigated awareness. So life lived more in imagination, of course. To live just in memory really is to be of a disturbed future. The past doesn't move you as the future isn't arrived, and to relax in eye awareness is the present. You don't have to knock to ask or search. It's just a certain thing that darkness is needed. You can see the stars, of course, and you consider a metaphor that you're sculpting analog to access state-specific behaviour in an eye-aware state. In an unbroken affair, of course, love takes courage, as awareness is of an absence of ego, as darkness is the absence of light. Availableness is really a vessel that you've kept buoyant, if you could imagine your heart such, and that it's keeping water out, just as fear it doesn't rent any space for. So to be happy in eye awareness, really, there's no comparison that exists. No superior or inferior state exists, and you're living in a world remaining untouched, and you remain in such, you are in the world which doesn't really, as a world, remain in you. For existing in rebellion to anything such like that, you'd have under negative economic inductance, like in the moment where this is being given to you. It's really like a war is being fought for people's mind, and the greatest creativity can have been really to have risen as a body is the mind's experience of itself in an eye-aware state, because who is great always is you who comes up against something great. And being creative, you love life, of course. As life was avoided, it was to avoid death, really, and as pleasure was avoided, it was to avoid pain. The real question you could ask yourself really is, if I was alive before death, such life really is a festival, of course, of little time it is to have been unhappy. But when you can see you can have joy as an exalted self, self-numbered, as everyone is humbled, exalted, all everyone is for you. So love other beloved, yet not the fictional behaviour. You can care for this beloved, yet not a mere subject to as behaviour. That's fictional. For being in your heavenly abode really is this space that you have where you keep, which is the space between two children playing. And the body's the mind's experience of itself. By practicing an eye-aware meditation, as we've been talking about, you can acquire knowledge and progress to an ever more superconscious state, which we're talking about. For even when it looks like the structure of grass, you can look microscopically. You're going to find examples, of course, of a happy face inside. And what like energy summons like energy back. And it's an interesting thing that wherever you look at the grass, you're going to find a happy face. So magnicity is flowing from the form ceaselessly, and given this is a shape and fundamentalness of a center point, just as a neurotransmitter in your brain and body. So just as magnetics and magnicity is conditioned by the stars in the very north, the shape of the neurotransmitters that we have in our head follow the conditioning of the stars that we have in the heavens. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed part 4 of this, and I have a small part 5 left.